Hey there, today I'll be talking about why it is time to turn the page with textbooks. For years, textbooks have been the go-to for educators. They are filled with rich content to offer students a resource to reflect on outside of the class and become a fountain of information that teachers can use to assess from. However, textbooks have many disadvantages as well. Accessibility, expense, politics, corporatization, and representation, just to name a few. I will begin with accessibility. Textbooks in elementary and secondary schools are typically kept on a back counter just collecting dust. It is problematic, but I'll focus on the post-secondary situation first. Not only are textbooks super heavy, not easy to haul around, and get outdated within months, it's also just tricky to get a hold of them now. Getting your hands on a textbook has never been the easiest thing to do, but it's getting even more difficult. With universities such as the U of R closing down their on-campus bookstore, it's forcing students to have to order online. This might sound okay, but not every student has access to a credit card, not every student is familiar with online ordering, and what about those students who just need an extra hand with choosing the right text? Universities are not the only ones who are moving towards a more digital world. Textbook giants are right on their heels. Textbook giants have been making the expected shift into a digital world through what we know now as e-textbooks. These are downloaded onto laptops and can be accessed through smart devices and computers without having to haul around those big heavy textbooks. It sounds great, but it's not all good. While convenient, a study by the Journal of Innovative Education shows some of the disadvantages inherent with e-textbooks. They include eye strain from electronic displays, the limit of battery power of mobile devices, the discomfort for possible technical issues, and the requirement for students to own a computer or electric reader. Another study comparing paper to electronics says that more relevant research is needed to verify the reliability as educational tools across the variety of electronic platforms that are available to students. And how about those astronomical prices of these textbooks? A 2012 article by Sun, Flores, and Tanguma state that students spend between $700 and $1,000 on textbooks every single year. 84% of students mention price as a reason to select an e-text over a hard copy, and an article by Humphrey in 2016 states that since 1978, the cost of textbooks has increased by 812%. A whopping 65% of students said they did not purchase a required textbook because it was too expensive, even though 94% of this group said not having these textbooks would negatively hurt their grades. Add in tuition, add in living costs, this is just outrageous for students. Students aren't the only ones hurting from this. That stack of textbooks we talked about on the back counter in your elementary school, those are extremely outdated also, usually. With budget cuts coming in like crazy for schools, there's just no money in the accounts to keep these updated. Why does it matter to have an outdated textbooks? Because it makes these textbooks irrelevant. You might be thinking, why does relevancy matter so much? Well, that's another strike against textbooks, a huge strike. Textbooks are written and produced by who? Who ways of science? Or just exactly whose history are we teaching? In his 2007 paper, Michael Watts concluded that the textbook publishing industry remains cryptic and inaccessible. Little research has been published about the role of authors, the production of textbooks, the influence of the marketplace, and the economics of the textbook publishing industry. Textbooks are peppered with racism, sexism, and colonialism. They lack the representation that is so desperately needed in our classrooms, and they perpetuate cycles of marginalization by forcing students to learn a Western context. Watt goes on to tell us that the textbook publishing industry is characterized by being almost entirely controlled by private, small-scale enterprises, with people with general knowledge making these textbooks and not specialists. And for content, yikes. A 2009 paper by Satterwhite, Watts, and Piper discussed how white supremacy exists simultaneously in the minds, bodies, cultures, occupations, homes, vacations, and even bank accounts of racialized whites, and in the most ordinary spaces, places, and people, especially textbooks. They continue on to say that these same textbooks consistently reduce racism to irrational, abnormal, extreme, and individualized problems of psychological or moral deficit. They're represented as either foreign to Canada, isolated incidents within Canada, or part of a distant past, and with consequences solely for the racially subjugated. So, let's just make the change, right? These companies have incredible control. According to an article by Wired, almost all big education publishers are involved in some way with educational testing and learning management platforms. Pearson makes $1.7 billion each year in worldwide educational testing alone. They are the biggest publisher in the world. So what have we learned here about textbooks? Well, although there are definitely pros, we definitely have more cons. Inaccessibility, astronomical expense, and the politics make textbooks just not the solution. We need to find better ways to help students and not the publishers.